Welcome to the third winter webinar for ALD advisors, student officers, how to get them, how to keep them. If you were on yesterday's webinar, you'll know that I'm hoping that these are conversations and participatory. I do not claim to have any answers, let alone all the answers, but I hope to have some ideas and get your ideas for things that have worked, and maybe talk about your challenges. So the reason this topic came up as an important one is because I am aware of challenges that chapters are having, and I certainly do hear, Trish and I both hear from advisors that they have challenges. So we'll talk about some of those and see if we can come up with some ideas. I do always like to do quick introductions. We're a small group, and if you could introduce yourselves and just tell us what campus you're at. I'm Eileen Merberg with the National Office, and Trish is here.
Hi there, Trish Maxwell, Director of Communication, and I work with Eileen.
And Sue, why don't you go next?
I'm Sue Nichols, excuse me. I'm Sue Nichols from Texas A&M Kingsville, which is about 30 minutes south of Corpus Christi.
Great. Vicki.
Hi, I'm Vicki Welsh Houston, and I'm from IUPUC, which we are part of the Indiana University system.
Great. Denise.
Hello, everyone. My name is Denise Hall. I work at Transylvania University in Lexington, Kentucky.
Lisa.
Hi, everyone. Oh, huh?
Yeah.
Me? Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Rochester Mills, and I'm at Buffalo State College, and you will eventually see a little one popping in because she just loves to do that.
Set the timer.
Zoom bombing. Laura.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Laura Yates, and I work with the University of Texas at Austin.
Great. Hi, Hannah Wilson, one of our new advisors, new chapters.
Hi, everyone. I'm Hannah Wilson, and I'm from Chicago. I work at National Louis University.
And they are a new chapter being installed this spring. Victoria put an introduction in chat. She's at Alabama Birmingham and is listening in today. And I think that's everybody. Is there anyone else? We catch everybody? Okay, great. So some familiar folks from last couple of webinars. Great, welcome back. Again, let me just repeat that I hope this is participatory, that we can have conversations. I've just thought I'd share a few thoughts. My background, for anyone who may not know, is in higher ed. Before I came to ALD, I was a director of student activities, student life, campus life, student leadership, clubs and organizations for about 30 years before coming to Alpha Lambda Delta. So I pulled up some old resources and thoughts on things. And certainly through our work with ALD, we're certainly aware that sometimes student officers can pose challenges. And as we know, it really just fluctuates. I don't know if you've experienced this, and for anyone new, you will experience this probably, is it really can fluctuate from year to year. So one year you're going to have this great group of officers, and they're following through on everything, and you hardly are doing anything at all. They're really taking charge and fantastic, and the energy lasts through May. And then the next year you might end up with officers who are you know, MIA, ghosting you, like don't show up for things and just don't follow through, or maybe they start out strong and then just sort of lose interest or energy. This past year, of course, has posed a lot of unique challenges. So it can fluctuate year to year. So don't lose heart if you've had some experience with a good group of officers, that you know that that's possible. And okay, so let me share a few thoughts. All good? Okay. Trish, you'll just tell me if that's not working or anything.
Yeah, I'll flag it down.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the first things I thought I would just have a brief review on is, we've just in my experience in general of advising student organizations in general, not necessarily honor societies, and not really officers. This slide is not really talking about officers, but I just think it's important to just know and think about and maybe even do your own research or ask your student activities office on campus if they've done any research on, why is it that students even join a club on campus. And Alpha Lambda Delta, well, it's unique because it's an academic honor society. It functions in many ways like many other registered student organizations on your campus. And some of your campuses have, like Laura, you probably have 500 recognized student organizations, and there are hundreds and hundreds on big campuses, and smaller campuses might have 50 to 100. So we know that students join organizations for a lot of reasons. They want to meet new people, they want to make friends, they want to join something that is of an interest and be around other students with a similar interest, like the chess club or a cultural club or a music club or whatever it is, a fraternity, a sorority. They do think about their resumes and they want to gather leadership experiences, being a member of an organization. And again, we're just talking about members now. It's certainly something students are putting on their resumes. Hopefully they want to develop skills and learn new things. We hope they want to learn. I'm sure they do. And of course, we know that many student organizations are service-based. If they're not strictly a service-based organization, many of them still do service, like fraternities and sororities, that sort of thing. So again, this is just sort of set the foundation of why students join organizations. And I think that's just important to know, because if you're looking to get students to join the organization or to take on a leadership role in the organization, it's important to be aware of what motivates them. So let's talk a little bit more about officers. I don't know if everybody can mute. Trish, are you able to mute all?
Yeah, I just did.
Yeah, okay, great. So we did some research about 3 years ago, 2018, I think it was. And we're actually going to do some more, another round. We did what's called a SWOT analysis within ALD. But part of our SWOT analysis 3 years ago was specifically asking Alpha Lambda Delta officers about their thoughts about Alpha Lambda Delta. And a couple things that we discovered about ALD officers is they're stepping up to the plate because they want to develop their leadership skills, they want to build their resume and gain access to scholarships. So that, I think, is just, again, a foundational thing important to know, that if chapters can and advisors can help develop those three things, promote those three things in intentional ways, you might be more successful in getting students to step up. So what I want to talk about this webinar in sort of two phases. The first is how to get them, and then we'll talk about how to keep them. So right now, I just want to talk about how to get them. How do you, are you putting a call out and nobody's coming forward? Do you have limited students coming forward and you want to get more interested in officer positions? Again, that's going to fluctuate year to year, but if you can be aware of these three things and speak to all three, you might see better success in getting students to step up and volunteer or run for, if you have elections, however you handle it. And again, that varies by campus. So one of the first things, and this is, I'm going to take it out broader a little bit to talk about, and we're going to talk about the leadership and resume and scholarship in a minute too, but this is just a thought I had, is I think could be really powerful for you if you are not already doing this or are looking for ideas for how to motivate students, current members, new members, to take on a leadership role. And that is that you hopefully, I think in every case, and if not, let's talk, but I think in every case here, all the chapters participating right now, and if you're watching this recording later, you've had officers, you've had them in the past. Hopefully you have them, you've got a few, maybe you have some from a year ago who are now juniors or seniors. I would really encourage them or find a very purposeful way to have them tell their story. So if they were officers, especially get your good ones, like get your really effective ones, past officers or current, and have them in some ways and to document, whether it's a video or an Instagram post or something on the website or an email that goes to all members. There's lots of ways you can do this, but I would have them talk about what motivated them. So why did they step up to the plate? Was it because they wanted leadership skills? Did they just want to have a better chance at a scholarship? Did they just do it because no one else would? What are the reasons that your current or past officers have taken on that role? What motivated them? Why did they step up? And most importantly, what did they get out of it? And so hopefully you're getting positive answers. If somebody hated the position and was not really good at it or whatever, then don't you might not want to, or that's another webinar. But you're going to have some positive experiences out there, and there's just, and I'm a broken record on this too. I'm sure I said it a few times in yesterday's webinar. There's nothing more powerful than peer to peer. Students are listening to their peers. You can talk all about the leadership skills and how to put it on the resume and scholarships and all that, but if they hear it from another student, from their peer, they might be much more likely. And there are probably really great stories out there about why they stepped up to the plate, but most importantly, what they got out of it. And trying to get them to be really specific. What skills did they gain? And to give examples, that's going to really help them for their resume and for future interviewing. That's a great interview skill, is to give like a behavioral answer to something, not just, I was president of my Honor Society chapter. Well, that's great, but what did you do with that? And what did you learn? And what skills did you gain? And to be specific. There was a conflict in our group, and half the group wanted to do one thing and the other half wanted to do the other. And this is what I did to help them come to consensus. And we had this great program as a result. So what's your story? Tell their story. I think for motivating students to take on a role, if they could see that, I think that would really help. And so here's a quote that I found in the archives that was from a student who specifically stepped up and volunteered to take on a leadership position, specifically because they saw someone else and they were just impressed by the current president or the past president. And this is, if you read this, it's a lot on a slide, but you can see that he's actually not talking about leadership skills, resume, or scholarships at all. He just wanted to feel like he just wanted to feel important and that he was doing something good and helping the chapter and helping the institution in some way. That's a great motive. That's a legit motivator. There's nothing wrong with that either. And so this helped this person step up specifically because they saw sort of modeling the way, if you know that leadership practices inventory that other leaders were modeling, and somebody else felt compelled to inspired, I guess. Okay. The other thing I know research has shown that oftentimes student leaders in a college student organization are often motivated to take on leadership roles because they were experienced in high school. So this is a picture of lockers. This is the best I could get for to indicate high school, which is lockers. But I think this could be a really useful tool, is to encourage students to sort of, or try to identify students who are involved in high school. And so there's a couple of things about the high school experience, because again, you know, we're talking first year students who are a first year honor society. So the high schooler, there really could be kind of two almost opposite thinking ways to approach the high school experience for your current members or your new members. The ones who were involved, the Tracy flicks, if you ever saw that movie, what is that movie? Election, I think, with Reese Witherspoon. There's students like that are just, they're involved in everything. They're going to come to college, they're going to join Alpha Lambda Delta, and they're going to raise their hand right away. They were super involved in high school, and those are good ones to tap. We're going to talk about tapping in a minute, to get involved. But the opposite of that might also be true, which is try and identify students, your new members, who were not at all involved in high school, that they might be also good ones to target, because maybe they felt like they wanted to and they just never did. They're now in college, sort of getting a fresh start, a whole new world, and maybe having more confidence to take on a leadership role when they never did in high school. Again, this is just more, it's a little abstract, but it's just a thought to, if you can find out or have conversations with your new members about their experiences in high school. It could be, if they were never involved in high school, it might be a unique new opportunity for them. Okay. So let's go back to those reasons for wanting to step up or motivating you to take on a leadership role. There's no question that students who apply for Alpha Lambda Delta scholarships across the board, but in particular TRO and STEMLR, have a much better chance of getting a scholarship if they're involved in the chapter. There's just no question. It's not required necessarily, especially for graduate fellowships, but that's not really what your offices are thinking about right now. Your new officers are thinking about TRO and STEMLR. Trish, I don't know if you want to chime in on this, but is it safe to say that there's no question they have a better chance if they are an officer?
I think it definitely helps, you know, in hearing the committee discuss, you know, kind of what's important. And they talk, you know, a lot of the questions focus on ALD involvement, but it's not to say that if they didn't have ALD involvement, that they wouldn't be, eligible and competitive. Also, not just an officer position, but active membership is a big thing with scholarship committees too.
Yeah, good. And yeah, and that's a great point. Yeah, but I don't want to make it sound like only officers get it. That's definitely not true. But getting students involved in the chapter can often lead to officer positions. So especially if you're allowing officers to be in their junior year or even senior year, which some chapters do, you can at least get new members to join committees or to help plan an event. So they are probably being put in a better position for a scholarship, and then also maybe grooming them, if you will, for an officer position. So definitely use that as a motivator for if you're having trouble getting students to volunteer for positions, then definitely bring up the scholarship opportunity idea or connection anyway. Students want to make a difference on campus and in their community. They want to be of service. They're motivated. This generation is certainly motivated by community service and by giving back and by making a difference. And so that's just another angle to use in your appeal to encouraging students to take on a leadership role, is that they could be in a better position to make a difference on campus. They can help lead community service projects. They can create new ideas, create new opportunities for service. So definitely use that as an angle. Again, we want to talk about what the benefits are for the student, and so that could be a big motivator. We do, as you know, choose a theme every year. That is not required that that's the only theme you can plan service around. It's whatever topics and whatever service opportunities there are in your community. But we will suggest a theme every year just as a guide. And this year it is healthcare workers and first responders. And it'll change in the summer. We'll have a new theme in the summer. If you have suggestions for themes, by the way, we've never really asked for suggestions, but please, we've had animals and
Environment and children.
the environment and children. Okay. So pretty broad themes, but anyway, that is that. So I talk about this a fair amount in various discussions and conversations, but it's a big one for student leadership. It's a very big one for officers, in my opinion. And I'm not sure who, if there's any chapters here who do that, who do this and you want to talk about it, but that's somebody being tapped on the shoulder. So what I call it the power of the tap. So if you're really struggling and students aren't, so let's say you just, maybe in your invitation in MHS, you ask an invitee question, are you interested in a possible leadership position? Maybe you wait until after the invitation closes and you induct all your new members and then you poll everybody and say who wants to be a leader or an officer, however you handle it. And let's say you're not getting students to volunteer or they're not expressing interest. This might be something to create a program around or create an effort around, which is tapping. So that just means identifying students yourself, asking. And that can be incredibly effective. I mean, it actually happened to me, and I'm 50-something years old. So like 10 years ago, I was not really feeling very much part of an organization. I was volunteering for a statewide organization, and it never occurred to me to take on a leadership role. I was just sort of in and out of the organization. And then I was literally tapped and suggested that I run for president. And the impact it had on me, and again, like I'm an older person, I'm not a young college student, it was pretty profound. And I did take on the role, and it was an amazing experience. So for a young person to be tapped or to be asked or just suggested, hey, I see you at meetings and I saw what you wrote about whatever, or I see your, your interaction with the chapter, and I think you'd be really good as an officer. Have you ever thought about it? It could be that they never have, and it can be incredibly powerful and effective. So how do you do that? It could be you, because you've observed something. You can enlist your officers to do that. Get out into the chapter, chat with the chapter. And again, I think this could be done online too, if they're only doing Zoom things. Who's showing up for the Zoom meetings, and who's offering suggestions? Have your officers identify a few people that they could approach and tap. And then really if you really want to go crazy with this one, is use faculty. So who are the first year faculty, first year academic advisors, or first year seminar faculty, or just faculty in general who teach a lot of first year students. There might be a way that you can ask them to suggest some students, or to write a letter of recommendation, or to communicate with the students and encourage them to run for office. So that's the power of the tap. So if they're really not stepping up, don't hesitate to identify them and ask. We often, I won't belabor this, but we do often put the call out and sit back and wait. I think that's sort of the standard, and it often works, and that's really all you have to do. But sometimes that doesn't work. One thing I wanted, and then I think we're gonna move on from this. This is the last sort of point I wanted to make about encouraging students and motivating students to take on the roles is, so we've talked about what motivates them to do it. What are the hesitancies? Why don't they? I have a few ideas. We'll talk about one in particular, or a few, but I think one of the biggest reasons students are not stepping up is they feel like they don't have the time. So they maybe perceive it as a huge time commitment. They have a lot on their plate. They don't have the time. So I think that's going to be your biggest hindrance. And my suggestion is to address it. You have to talk about it. I would say to quantify it for them, be realistic. So yes, there is a time, there's time you're going to need to spend on planning a meeting, but be specific. This chapter we meet once a month, so it's just going to be a matter of creating a Zoom link and sending it out, or bringing in guest speakers. It's about an hour a week or 2 hours a week. I would just be upfront about it so students can know what exactly they'd be getting into or in for, be realistic but not too overwhelming so that they don't commit or want to commit. And then the other thing is to offer time management workshops. I mean, so everybody's struggling with time. Everybody, us, you are, your student members, let alone your officers. Everybody's challenged with managing their time. So that could be some content that you're offering to your chapter across the board is time management workshops or skill building. Let me just pause there for a minute and not to focus on the negative, but what are reasons students are not, what do you think the reasons are students are not stepping up? If you're finding that they're not, why do you think they're not? Any thoughts?
I think for our campus, we're an extremely small campus and getting smaller, it seems like each year. And so what happens is that you end up with the students who are doing everything, and they're being a mentor for first year seminars, and they've got maybe working in the library, and they've got so much going on that I think that either they take on too much and then just don't fulfill what they need to do everywhere else, or they say, I can't do anything else and don't. And being a commuter campus, they're all working jobs on top of that outside and a full load. So they do have a lot going on.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, what else?
Yeah, I was going to add to what Vicki said. It's overscheduling for them because they're high achievers and they want to remain high achievers. So their academics is first, and then everything else is secondary. And if they have to have a job, then that's secondary, and everything else doesn't matter.
Right.
So that's a problem I'm having on campus and then we have those who do everything, and we need to make sure that they graduate because that's what they're here for. So those are the three types of students that I tend to have. And it's like, okay, where do we find a balance where this may not be so much a burden on everyone, but I don't know.
Right.
If you have a magic bullet or pill or some cliff notes, I would love to.
So I have a couple of thoughts on this, but any other thoughts? I don't want to dominate. I've been talking a lot. Yeah, I mean, I think, so again, we're just at the part where we're talking about getting them to step up. So if what you're finding then are students that are stepping up are the ones stepping up for everything, then that does pose challenges. And if there's ways to look at bringing in sort of the reinforcement, are there positions you can even just create for others in the chapter who might be willing to take on a role, but maybe are overshadowed by the ones who are doing everything. I don't know if that makes sense, but because we do see that's again, reference to that movie Election with Reese Witherspoon, that character Tracy Flick took on everything. She was president of everything, and that's just not realistic to maintain, especially if you have a part-time job, like Lisa said, and are trying to go to school. So pulling in others from the chapter to take on more of that work can help.
One thing that I'm seeing more chapters do are have co-officers. So maybe being president seems too intimidating. So they, instead of having a president and a vice president, have co-presidents. And then that way, look good on their resume. They feel a little more comfortable because someone else is there to kind of help out. I see that approach with smaller schools, and that seems to work well. And then also on the flip side, with the larger schools that are trying to get more people, they have 30 applications for 10 positions, they'll do co-positions then, just to kind of dole out more leadership opportunities. But that co-piece seems to it's more prevalent than it used to be.
Right, yeah, definitely shares the load for someone who's taken on too much. And I think, and this is more maybe getting into the topic of how to keep them once you get them, which I'll shift to, is helping them. And I know Sue, not to put her on the spot, Sue does these great workshops, and many of you maybe do them yourselves too, on helping student leaders, craft resumes and job interviews and stuff where they're able to articulate really well their skills that they've learned by being a leader in a student organization, and how to articulate that verbally and on their resume. And I think the trap that Lisa talked about, and that many of you I'm sure have experienced, is that students they take on way too much. And it's almost like, have you ever seen a student's signature on an email? There's like 17 things and that's what's on their resume. So I was this, and this, and this. And when I see that, I don't know if students realize this enough, but the more is not the merrier. Like it just means that, I just question whether that's really leadership experience when you're doing 17 things. Whereas if it was 2 or 3 things that you were doing really well and that you really truly learned leadership skills from, it's a balance where I think they'd be well served by a workshop on how to articulate that better than having too much of too many things. Quantity over quality. So, yeah.
Another approach that could work is a major-based approach. So if you're looking for a treasurer, look in, at finance majors, or, economics majors, or, communications person, web, type majors. That might be a good, and pitch it as like, this is a great learning opportunity, in your major that, can give you leadership experience.
Yeah, that's a great idea connect the two, the position to a cluster of majors. Where students could almost like have an internship, or consider it almost like that, where they're getting experience. Okay.
One of the things that we do is that we kind of, when we're having a meeting or we're talking with people like that, is how we configure the room. We don't have somebody standing up at the front of the room talking to the room. We have them, sit in a circle or something like that. But if that isn't feasible because you've got set things, we also talk about leading from the back row. And, people that are kind of shy always sit in the back and they don't want to get involved, but they have an idea, so that giving them, so could you think of something of what we could do if we get rained out? And then give them like a little small thing to think about, and then they could bring that forward, and that gets them kind of more involved. But the other thing that I do is when I go into classrooms, I frequently stand at the back of the room and talk and make them turn around, because it freaks out the back row and it freaks out the front row because they're not the front row anymore. And so they have a completely different dynamic, and they listen differently too because they're so freaked out about it. Try that sometime.
That's great. I love it. I haven't thought of it. Yeah. Good. Okay, so let me shift gear. That's great stuff. You know, we didn't really just solve anything right there, I don't think, but in terms of your challenges, but hopefully some of these things resonate. I know that students are taking on a lot and don't have a lot of time. So whatever ways we can help them manage it and prioritize and that sort of thing. Which I want to talk about what ways the national office could help with that in just a second. So let me just shift to, so we have them, they are in a position, how do we keep them engaged? Their energy's great in April when they first got elected, or whatever it is, whenever you elect them, and they do great things in the fall, and then we don't hear from them. So that's always a challenge, keeping them engaged. And this is a picture of growth and development. So anytime we can foster an environment that promotes growth for them, that it's not just this stagnant thing, here's a list of things you got to do, here's what we do in April, and then May, in June we don't do much, and then in September we do this. It's sort of like this rote schedule. Well, maybe that's, you know, maybe that's not really promoting growth and development. So anytime we can help them develop in the role. So the first thing I want to just suggest is that because this was my job for 30 years, I'm pretty sure that your college or university, if you're not part of that department, and some of you are, that there's a department on your campus specifically there for student leadership development. So it's the student activities office, campus life, student leadership, student engagement, whatever it is. My guess is, I don't know really hardly any campuses that don't have an office in their university that does this for you. So whatever ways you can connect your student leaders to the student activities office and find out what leadership development they're offering, really try and connect them because you have experts on your campus that are doing the work every year, and they're oftentimes they don't get very many students. Some are great and popular. They get students to participate, but other times some, I know for Buffalo State where I was, we'd have 2 people show up to these workshops and sometimes we'd have 100. So they're looking for student leaders who are interested in learning and growing and developing and looking for skills. So use those offices on your campuses. And then of course, Alpha Lambda Delta has developed a series of leadership development and career development courses that students can participate in. We have well over 1,000, maybe 1,500 students, ALD students are participating right now, which is great for us. That's huge. So please encourage your officers to take part in the ALD Lead Certified. They'll get a national certificate on the completion of 10 of the 12 courses. Speaking of this, while I'm here, I don't really have it developed. I don't at all have it developed, but it's an idea. These are, for anyone familiar with this program, it's pretty general student leadership development topics, personal development and leadership and career, but it's not specific to Alpha Lambda Delta at all. It's not specific to officers. So one project I have in mind is to create another whole series like this with some similar overlap, but have some sections and lessons and modules specific to being an ALD officer. So I am thinking through creating a certificate series specifically for ALD officers. So they could get dual certified if they wanted to do this and that. But this other series would be focused just on officers. Do you think that would be useful? Is that something that do you think students would participate in? Officers would? I'm
thinking if we probably combine it with maybe an executive board meeting, because like I'm saying, they don't want to seem like they're doing this, this, and this. So if we may have just embedded in like their training or something, it would be more meaningful for them.
that's a great idea. And I think one of the things that I didn't even read through my notes here, I wrote down this idea of, even for this series, this current series, is there's opportunities to do group work with the series if you wanted to pull the officers together, if there was a way to do that, especially if it's online, it's easy to do if you can find the time, and go through some of this stuff together as a group of officers. Because each of these, there's 12 modules or courses, we're calling them. They're really mini courses, but each of them have discussion questions built into each subject. And right now it's all self-paced and students are individually just doing it. And I don't know if they're sitting in their rooms reflecting on these questions. They're probably not, but it's a great group activity if you are so inclined. But so Lisa, if that's what you're, I mean, I can see an advisor series that's really more a group thing where they're doing it together and they can discuss things together. Reflection and goal setting and planning would be a good feature for it. Let's see what else I have. Let me just go back to this. I think, yeah, no, that's right. I got through all my notes. The other thing that I think really helps students stay engaged, leaders stay engaged in an officer position, is lots of praise. So if they're, I mean, there's a lot of creative things that you could be doing to really boost their confidence and to help them feel appreciated for the work that they're doing, especially if they're overwhelmed and have too much on their plate. I mean, it's nice to be rewarded. So I'm not sure if anyone does this, but there's certainly, I think, a lot of merit to thinking about incentives for your officers. So does anybody reward them with anything? I know some chapters will give a honor cord to provide free. Other students have to pay for it, but the officers get an honor cord, or maybe a whole honors pack, grad pack, we call it. Maybe the senior book that ALD gives out. So I'm going to get to the next slide. So there might be ways that you can build in incentives and prizes, or gift cards or something. If they stick it out for the year, there's some incentive to keep them, and I think that can really help. And then I think the last thing I wanted to mention is, but to this reward and praise and recognition, I guess, for the work that they're doing, is we see some chapters who, and here's an example at Western Michigan, every week, is it, Trish, or month? I think every week they are profiling an e-board member on Instagram. And I mean, that's, they do a really nice job because it's really nicely laid out and it's like this really high quality picture of the students. And it's just a really nice way to recognize your officers, is if you can do that, some sort of weekly profile on Instagram or other social media. Trish, any thoughts on that one? Do you know other chapters who do that? And someone here might do it.
Yeah, University of Memphis does a nice job highlighting their e-board members. A lot of people, or a lot of chapters, also just pick random members and highlight them, which is a good way to get them involved and groom them for future positions.
That's a great idea. And so here's the, this could be a nice incentive for officers who fulfill their duties for the year, is that they could just get a cord. We sell 3 honors items, and then all 3 can be combined together into a grad pack. Might be a nice gift for officers at the end of the year. That is my discussion slide. Okay, so let me see what Laura just wrote. And more intentional by having officers share about ways that other officers helped out at the start of the meetings. Also participate. Good, yeah. So,
Trish,
Okay.
one of the things we did at Texas A&M Kingsville 4 years ago was the president wanted, and the university-wide, wanted to tell the stories more. And so we had Champions Week. And each day of that week, we had like service, we had student leadership, we had different things, but we had buttons made. And that said that, and any of the students that did research or things like that. And so they got these buttons and they started putting them on their backpack. And one of the things was like Starbucks would give them 10% off type of thing. But it became a thing. So each year we had the same categories, but we changed the shape. So we went from like circles to stars to something like that. And so it became a thing to have these 4 years of leadership on there. So maybe if a chapter university has a button making machine, maybe ALD could give active members these buttons that they could be a collector's item.
Right.
And get some attention that way.
That's smart.
Yeah, that's cool. I like the idea of different shapes. Yeah. And Laura, I like your idea. So I think what you're saying is sort of peer feedback. So you have some officers talk about what other officers did and sort of in thanking them for their work that week or whatever. Is that, yeah. They've helped out. Yeah, good. And then swag, I mean, it doesn't incentives for officers to keep them engaged and reward them and thank them. Doesn't have to be just, yeah, it could be anything. So it could be ALD swag or your university's swag, merchandise, pins, water bottles, and honor cords and that sort of thing. What else have you found on the positive end? What's keeping your students engaged? Are you all here because they're not? Some of you've got good officers over the years. Anything I've missed for what works for you all? No?
Susan Huffman would talk about the importance of a handwritten thank you note and how far that can impact students and make them engaged. So I'll mention that since she's not here.
She's not here, right. Absolutely. Nobody writes notes anymore with their pen in their hand, except for Trish. Trish does. She's really good at it. Lisa, you do too? Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a, a lost a lost art. But absolutely getting a handwritten, of course, like I have to talk about our cards. Where are they here? This is a nice little purchase. I'm not really pushing stuff in our store, but since you mentioned that, for $10 you can get 25 ALD cards. That's not that bad. Pack of 25, it's a nice little ALD card, blank on the inside, a little envelope. If you get a pack of 25 that you could write a note to every officer, have them write to each other. You could be thanking faculty and staff for the other things, but our little note cards might be useful for that. Have we talked enough? We've just got a few minutes left. I don't know if we've talked enough about this issue of the overwhelmed student, other than, the ones who take on a lot and are doing a lot of things. Other than helping them, they need to manage their time. They need to be realistic about what they can accomplish. And back to that career resume idea of not just taking on stuff just because you want a long list, but what's quality versus quantity. I think that's just a student development thing to help them see what's realistic. And, for this year, I'd have to say, for anyone sort of thinking just about this year, there's no question it's just been rough for everybody. So if you're having a tough year with your officers, a lot of chapters who don't normally have tough years with officers are having a tough year. So I think we need to keep that in mind, that this has been rough for officers, for you as advisors, for the world. So spring was cut short, fall was a mess, spring is unknown this spring, so cut them all some slack too, and yourself as well, because and that maybe they don't aren't expected to do too much the rest of the semester in terms of engaging the chapter might be continuing to be a challenge. But if we can think about these things for the future and for the fall and next year, that would be good. Okay.
I had a question.
Yes.
Sorry, earlier it was a little noisy. I was just wondering, is there a way, I know like students are really busy, but would there be some way that we could help them kind of prioritize their ALD responsibilities more? Like in addition to time management, would there be some other tips for that?
Yeah, I think, so for the spring in particular, yeah, I mean, the one thing that comes to mind is a year-round, like a year in review, a year-round calendar. I'm trying to think if we have that in our handbook. Don't we have what? Yeah.
I know there's one in a conference presentation that Lisa Rook did in Buffalo. So it'd be on the Buffalo Conference 2019 page, and it's ALD 101. And she lays out each month and what happens. So that might be something to steal.
Can you grab a link to that? I'm trying to find, I see.
Sure, I can.
I see. Yeah, so that was the first thing. So she'll find the link. That was the first thing that came to mind is because we are sort of a cycle kind of an organization. Again, I always say the chess club, other clubs on campus, they just sort of meet and to come up with ideas and different things. But Alpha Lambda Delta and honor societies and sororities and fraternities are like this too. There's sort of this set. Fall is this, spring is recruitment and getting new members and an induction ceremony and whatever else you're doing. And but you might have traditions in the fall. We always do a service project in September, and we do this in October, and we do Relay for Life, and that's always in November. Whatever it is for your chapter, having a year at a glance, a calendar, which becomes sort of a to-do list, a guide for the officers, this is what you're expected to do. This is what our chapter has done. Room for new ideas and that sort of new traditions. But so Laura, I don't know if that makes sense, but if that would be helpful. So a timeline, almost like a to-do list. So thank you, Trish, for that link. That's it there. And Lisa, of course, Lisa Rook, long-standing advisor, very successful chapter. So she should be leading this session. She does a great, the other thing, and I had it, the other thing that I think is really a great thing to do is have a succession plan, a transition plan. So that's our webpage, our handbook on transition. So I know Lisa Rook, again at IUPUI, does a great retreat. Not everybody can do this big, weekend retreat, but they do, and they find it very successful. Like I don't know what time of year it is. It's April, or is it in April? They go away somewhere for like 2 or 3 days, outgoing and incoming, all get together and spend a lot of time together. To help with that transition. It really sets a nice groundwork foundation for new officers. And is that Lisa's?
Yeah, so Lisa and then Deb from Baylor co-presented at the conference this year about officer transition and kind of keeping that momentum. So you can find their recording on that link. It's a good one to check out.
Good, yeah. Yeah, so, and that, maybe to wrap this up, like I said at the beginning, I'm certainly not an expert. I have thoughts and ideas, and we're just going by what we see work with other advisors. And there are lots out there doing great work and successful, and you all are too, but there's others who aren't here that have sort of come up with some interesting ideas and effective ways to keep officers engaged, keep them accountable, and reward them and all of that. So if we can, share each other's resources like this, I think you'll find it useful. Use our Facebook page to pose questions of each other if you want. Or the other thing is, don't forget we we do share each other's contact information. If you, I know Lisa Rook would be more than happy to receive an email or a phone call from you to chat more about it. Or if you have a really specific issue that you want help with, and we might know of another advisor who's done this amazing thing to address it, we'll put you in touch with each other and learn from each other and steal from each other, steal ideas, borrow, make them your own. Okay, well, great. We will wrap it up here then. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you got at least one or two things useful that you can use. And as always, we are also broken record with the message of always reaching out to us. We're always happy to have you ask us questions or one-on-one chats about concerns or issues you're having. And we are always happy to take your calls and emails. So reach out. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your day. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.